you for staying with us here on TMI this promising Thursday. Let's get right to it. The issue is the incessant strikes by the Academic Staff Union of Universities and the implications it has for the education sector in our great country. I'm joined by the chairman of ASUU at the University of Benin, Professor Julius ESL. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
Uyi, by the way.
Sorry, Uyi.
Okay, I should add that to my name, maybe.
Exactly.
And next to him is a legal practitioner, one who is obviously, and as should be, very passionate about matters of education, Barrister Matthias Obayiwana. Thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate it. Gentlemen, let's get right to it. You've been here several times, and we've talked about issues wired around education. In the last couple of days, you've been trending on the news, not for a cause that's personal, but for something that is beneficial to the country as a whole, to families and to individuals, to organizations, and of course to governments.
Yeah.
We've been having the same conversation about the same issue for a very long time.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to continue along this trajectory?
I think we are not supposed to. If we have people whose minds are educated and, of course, who are sincere to citizens of a country, because they are still the same issues. And, of course, this is a country where we talk about change, where we talk about technological development, where we talk about bringing general positive goods to the people. And yet, the same issues keep repeating itself, year in, year out, month in, month out. So it's unfortunate that we are back in the trenches as Academic Staff Union of Universities. It's very, very unfortunate. But like we are saying, we are appealing to the general public, and then to students, and then parents who sponsor children to school. Of course, we have no other alternative. There are methods for collective bargaining, and the last option you will normally engage is strike. If we have alternative, we would have used. We have used persuasion. We've used by way of writing and pleading and talking to people's consciences, and yet we have people who are very, very sensitive, people who are selfish and all that. So if government can come with a decision that no child goes out of this country anymore, maybe at the secondary and university undergraduate level, to study outside the country, then we will be very happy. But what happens here, many of our government functionaries don't have their children and wards study even here in the country. They are outside. And so they leave out the children of the poor masses in the public schools in the country. So that is where we are. Because what we are asking for are things that will benefit, something that will move education forward in this country. You are aware that UNESCO benchmark, minimum benchmark for budget approval for education is 26%.
Right.
Yeah, from 2015, it has dwindled from 9 to 7 to this year 6%. And that is what the situation that we have here. And then you come into the university, see the squalor and the pains that we are going through. The condition under which we lecture and our students learn are near nothing to write home about. And so that is why we are
is the idea of resorting to strike. Of course, ASUU has always said that's the last resort,
yes.
Having used persuasion,
yes.
writing, pleading,
yes.
Trying to bring government to the negotiation table.
Yes.
Has going on strike as the last resort always worked?
Of course, to some extent, because it is because of going on strike that they had asked companies in this country to set aside 2% of their profits, which led to the establishment of ETF and later to TED Fund. So if we didn't go on strike, of course, nobody. All salary increase, and even to the general working populace of this country, had only increased because people went on strike. Nobody sits in government and think about your welfare. They are always only interested in themselves. That is what we have here.
I've spoken with some persons across this country who believe that ASUU's clamor is essentially centered around their welfare, that they just bring in one or two elements about the students to make it look as if there's a balance.
No, that is because...
You don't share that sentiment, obviously.
It is because they don't know. What is the number one thing that we're asking for? Is the funding of public education in this country. Let us look at a scenario. Currently, many of them who are in different positions of government are establishing universities. And we are saying, okay, you come fund the public universities so that we can study under minimum condition of learning and all that. But they are refusing. You know what is going to happen in the long run? They want to pauperize the tertiary education in this country, just like what has happened at the secondary school level, where if you want to train your child well now, you must send your child to a private secondary school and no more a public secondary school. It's the same scenario they want to play out at the tertiary education level. And we are saying no. Education is a public good. You cannot price it beyond the reach of the poor masses of this country. Everybody is entitled to. And then, to a number of them who are also in government, it's because they are not aware, they are not knowledgeable enough to understand that the pivot upon which development come about in the country is through education. If you want technological advancement, we are talking about no light and all of that. People are developing solar system and different things and all that. It is because of improvement in technology. And then technology will come through education. People are into various researches in the university and all of that. And without all of this, how are we going to have development? Let me
come to Matthias quickly now. Yes. Help us make sense of this. Obviously, you have gone through school. What have you really observed about the way education system, particularly at tertiary level, has evolved over time?
Well, the educational system in Nigeria over the years appeared to have and they appear to have you cannot imagine whereby students are living in an environment where they do not have the necessary equipment, or facilities to learn with. I quite agree with the lecturers that they must give them good incentive in terms of, that will boost their morale to put in their all in teaching the students. They must also create this enabling environment, for the students to also learn. Maybe facilities. You cannot have students sent to the lab, maybe chemistry lab, physics lab, when there are no facilities they are in to learn. You cannot have others sent to the engineering department where there are no practical experience other than mere academic experience. That is the edge that the foreign universities have over Nigerian universities. So you find out that the quality of education that we are receiving, is reduced. Meanwhile, under Chapter 2 of the Constitution of this country, which is the fundamental objective and directive principle of state policy, government is entitled to give qualitative education.
That's an obligation for government.
An obligation for government. And then they say there's a right to education. Yes, this right as contained in this chapter of the Constitution appears, not to be justiciable. Nobody can go to court to say you want to enforce this right because government says they can make provision for this qualitative education as such when practicable. So when they believe that they do not have the resources to make it qualitative enough, you can manage whatever they give to you. But ASUU is saying no. At least 26% of the budget of this country should be devoted to education. Why can we not just, assign budget 26% and even more to education? Because that is the bedrock. You can find a brain drain. You see, Nigerian students go through universities. The period, if you are going for a course of 5 years for law, for example, you end up spending 7 years. Strike will take 2 years. You must always budget, the period of strike. There is no way you can say you are going in there, you are coming in, and you have your life planned out. To say you go to school at year 1, by year 5 you are out.
So graduating in record time is not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. So that is why you find students now taking the initiative to go to private universities. So there's too many private universities now springing up. So people now take their decisions where if I must finish school in record time, it must not be public university.
When we have this kind of conversation, it will appear, it leaves us with the impression that government is not doing anything. But is that really the case, that government is not doing anything?
Government may not have done completely poorly as far as the issue of education is concerned, but we are asking them to do better. There must be qualitative education.
Right.
If you have an agreement with ASUU, and you agree with them that, look, there must be 26% of the budget devoted to education, they must be properly paid in such a way that teachers' welfare need not be in heaven. They should also have some benefit here on earth. And you have agreed that, yes, XYZ, we have agreed upon, we implement since 2009. Why would you renege on that agreement? Why would you want to keep going back? Look at the national workers' strike, impending strike that was called off. You say going to pay workers 30,000 naira as minimum wage. An agreement had been reached earlier. Implement that agreement. You say no, you should go back to negotiation. Negotiating what? So how are we now sure that what you are going to negotiate again, you also keep faith with it? And that has been submitted now to the government. We heard that the government has endorsed it. This morning they say no, that it is not endorsement. He just said he will look into it. Meanwhile, the strike has been cut off. Why would you wait for that last resort that to cripple the economy, to strike and and they disorganize the life of these students in this country? Whereas those children of the rich, they don't school here in this country. If you want the best education for them, you send them abroad to Harvard, to Oxford, to all sorts of schools abroad. How many of them school here in a public university? So for those who cannot go abroad, they try the private universities within the country, so that they can guarantee their time. I look at it at the end of the day. For employers, if you are not 26
or younger,
you will not get an employment in this country. Even though people are still complaining that there are no jobs, the available jobs are made for the younger ones. So you go through school, maybe you enter school at the age of 18 or 20. Then you are going for a 5-year course for law. You end up doing 7 years. Are you not 27 by the time you are done? You go for NYSC. Before you now start enlisting for a job, you are 30. And then the job you are applying for, you must 26. Have you not been shortchanged? So the destiny of our people in this country, are just being toyed with by the government and all the players, in government. They must take it seriously. If you must, allow the status quo to remain, like I've been noted by the professor, allow your children to also remain here. Let us all be in the same pool. So if you must all go to schools, public schools.
Is that realistic?
That should be a policy, in the government. If you say change begins with you, change begins with also those in governance. Our children, which will all attend a public school, that's the only way we can fund public school. Because our children will get back to us and say, look, our teachers did not teach us well today. There are no facilities, in the lab, in the library, no books, and all of that. The complaint will come back to the heads of government through their children.
Just a while back, you made reference to agreements. The government will reach an agreement with unions, including ASUU, for example.
Yes.
And then implementing these agreements becomes sort of rocket science.
Yes.
Good thing is you're a lawyer. Are there legal grounds on which ASUU can push the government?
You see, it might be novel, but I believe that if an agreement has been reached, not the principle of law, pacta sunt servanda, parties are bound by their contract. Okay. So if an agreement has been reached between ASUU and the federal government, and they refuse, to implement that agreement, I don't see any reason why they should not approach the National Industrial Court, for a declaration that the federal government is bound to implement that agreement. Right. And where they fail to do so, the necessary heads of government, it could be the Minister of Education, it could be the Attorney General of the Federation, should be cited for contempt of court once we have got a declaration that ASUU is bound. The federal government is bound to implement the agreement. Then you cite them for contempt of court. Because the judiciary must come into play this time around to stabilize the system. You can't leave it in the hands of the executive. You enter an agreement with your employees. Next minute you say you're not bound by that agreement. Let's not negotiate again. Is it a joking business? These are life issues. Destinies of children, citizens of this country are at stake. So why can't I believe they can approach the National Industrial Court for a declaration that the federal government is bound to implement all the terms of that agreement. And when they are getting a declaration and the federal government refuses to, a declaration and also an order directing them to implement the agreement, and they fail to implement the agreement, cite the Minister of Education or the Attorney General of Federation for contempt of court.
I saw you forming a fist with your right hand, so I think that's a clear indication you want to say something. Right.
Let me tell you, one of the issues that we are tackling is the funding of staff schools in the university. SANU took federal government to court.
The senior staff?
The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities took federal government to court for reneging on funding of the staff schools in the universities and got judgment against government. As I speak with you today, that they've not gone back on remaining adamant. That is the situation here. I mean, is it not the same government that got in? You know why we declared the strike the way we did? Because we noticed that this government don't respect the court. People get injunctions on Sunday against Dariye in this country. Is that not where we are? We have a government of impunity. So how can we continue? We can't rely on them. You go to a negotiating table with as it were, responsible people, and then they will sign. They put hand to paper. You heard the Minister of Education saying a few days ago that they signed the agreement on duress. Can you imagine that? That the 2009 agreement, why it's not implementable is because it was under duress. And what is there that is not implementable? That you will pay 200 billion naira yearly until you are able to get 1.2
a 6-year period.
For a 6-year period. Until you get 1.2 trillion or 1.3 trillion naira. Then you stop. At that point, you can hold the university functionary responsible for any decadence you will notice in the university. You just, meet your own part of the bargain. That is all that we are talking about. Then the other agreement, you went and agreed that, okay, you are owing your workers under you. Since then, you can't pay. But what is even worse, why we agree with my co-discussant here that, yes, that is the standard is nosediving, is because currently, you see fractional salaries now being paid in the universities. There are some universities where you are not paying 100% of your salary, that we are even crying that is not enough. That is one. Two, the state universities have become the other room for the governors who are visitors to state university. It is when they want that they do. And that is the situation here. They can fund this month, next month they are not funding. And so our colleagues in state universities are in limbo. They are just there in awe, watching this country. And a country that belongs to all of us, for how long can we continue like this? When we know that millions, Polaris, a bank collapsed yesterday, collapsed today, the same day, another name came up, and then all the debt written off, funds seated to them, and all of that today, we don't know who are the owners of Polaris.
I guess that was an initiative to protect depositors.
That is, excuse me. Excuse me. And then you don't have people to protect in the universities. You don't have children, the population of children across the universities in this country to protect. Or you don't have your citizens who work in the universities to protect. It's only in the bank you must protect people. Let them come out and tell us who owns, who did, and all that, how much. And people are saying that we don't have money and all that. We hear millions and billions of naira, trillions now, as it were, now changing hands every day. And you tell us, it is we think, look at Liberia. George Weah came up recently and I said, tertiary education, education across all levels will be free in Liberia. As it were in the past, people would have thought that Liberia doesn't have money, and so they can't fund education. But somebody who is sane had come into government there, and I said, we will fund education. But let me tell you about the shenanigans of government. Look at the University of Ilorin. The last academic allowance of 2009-2010 that was paid. Our colleagues who are against government in that university today have not been paid. But the others in the University of Ilorin have been paid EAA. Why that level? Why that segregation? Those who fought for the EAA are not paid, and then you are paying those who you are, as it were. That is where we are as a country. So there's no option. If anybody has gone into research and have found an alternative, because this is a government that will not respect law, they will know that they don't respect decisions of court. This is a government that will not respect writing of letters, appeals, or whatever, except if it concerns only them. And so the only option is the final. And for this, we are talking about the Ghanaian model. The Ghanaian model saw the Ghanaian lecturers stay at home for over 1 year, or 1 year or close to 1 year. If it will take us to be at home for 1 year, to get these people returned back to normal thinking, we will do so. The man who led the government team, Dr. Wale Babalakin, is building a university and all of that, and he's saying that there's no way government can fund the university. We know what they want to do. They want to pauperize
the public universities, for their private universities to thrive, so that children will come over
your
there.
proposed Ghanaian
So
model, your proposed Ghanaian model sounds brilliant, for want of better words. But then again, people have argued across this country that every time ASUU comes up to say we are going on strike, the next thing you know is they call off the strike because government has told them something, whatever something means.
Yeah.
What's the chance that government won't tell you something again on
Yes.
this one, and then you go back and you call off the strike?
we have been fooled several times.
Okay, so there's a change coming now.
Because of the level of education that our people have, of course, it's easy to reach our consciences, unlike those who are in government.
Okay.
And so what we have decided this time, we can't take the kind of promise that has been made to NLC. He has just alluded to a fact that yesterday that he has agreed to pay 30,000 minimum wage. By today, he's already turned into a proposal because strike has been called off. What do we think we are really doing in this country? Don't you think that we are not teaching children some very terrible morals as a nation? That you as a government, as adults, will take a decision and then speak through different parts of your mouth the next day. This is terrible. It's terrible for a nation. It's very, very bad for a country. For people not to be held responsible.
Prof, I'm going to come back to you in a bit, but let me talk to Matthias again. Let's look at the correlation that we're supposed to see between quality of education and national development, because we're told one smart way to fast-track development across sectors is to have quality of education. At least students should know how that it's possible to graduate in record time and be able to plan their whole life around that. Let's take a look, do an assessment of the Nigerian situation.
You see, there cannot be national development without qualitative education. You find graduates from Nigerian universities, employers are complaining that they are unemployable graduates.
Over 50% of them.
Yes. Why are they unemployable graduates? Perhaps the quality of education that they get, you know, maybe they cannot even justify certificate that they are carrying and all of that. That's why I say they are unemployable. They cannot think outside of the box. You know, so it's garbage in, garbage out. Let's just get this thing done and leave. Whereas in developed climes, that is not the way education is. You know, so there cannot be national development when there is no quality of education. So that correlation is there. So one leads to the other. So if the best gift that a nation can give to its generation, to its citizenry, is education. That's why I salute the courage of George Weah that I said there will be free qualitative education.
And we hope that doesn't turn out ultimately to be a political statement.
It shouldn't be, because I see him as a young man who is out to actually make a change, to effect a genuine change in the lives of the people in Liberia. Because when the populace are educated, you will not find corruption. An educated man who is sane, you will not find him stealing from his own country and taking it to another country to go and hide in such a way that by the time he dies, the special code that he used to keep the money, only him knows, the money evaporates into the thin air. Certain loots are still being recovered. They say Abacha loot, only one individual. What about others? Still be recovered till today. For how many years since the man died? The money still be recovered. So those with whom you have kept those money, they are using it to develop their country. They kept some in Britain, they kept some in Switzerland, you know, wherever they are kept all over the world. And at the end of the day, you know, a few years ago, you know, Tony Blair, you know, came out to say that the streets of London are not paved with gold. Nigerians should go back home. And the question is that, in fact, they made the statement that Nigerians are fantastically corrupt. And I argued on that point that it takes two to tango. Nigerians stole money and brought to you, and you kept the money. So it takes the thief and the receiver to constitute that crime of corruption, or, you know, of stealing, whatever it is. You receive the stolen goods, and now you have used that stolen goods to develop your country. And then you ask Nigerians who now find that their country will paradise, they are looking for a safe haven. You say, go back home. The streets of London are not paved with gold. We work hard to develop this country. So it takes an educated Nigerian, you know, individual to know that stealing from your own purse and lodging it somewhere else is not helping the country. It would have been better if stealing were good at all. That perhaps you stole from the country and use the money to establish factories or industries in this same country, such a way that our people are also now beneficiary of, you know, of the stolen property, whether, you know, it is tied to a particular individual. Nigerians are those working in the factories. Nigerians are those benefiting from it. So in such a way that development will still be within the four walls of this country. but you still you take them away. So education is required. Is it in the health sector? If you train a poor, somebody in medical field who's not properly trained, and that person will have to carry out the surgical operation on you tomorrow when you are sick, what do you expect? That will be suicidal. If you train a lawyer who is not properly trained to come and give you legal advice, on certain steps, business steps you are taking, that will be suicidal. So everything revolves around education. So when there is no good qualitative education for our people, you are going to have a terrible nation, terrible economy.
Just a while back, he made allusion to the growing popularity of private universities.
Yes.
Does it bother you that private universities have been proliferated in such a way that, according to the fear expressed by Professor Julius a while ago, it's not such that he believes that the idea is to pauperize the public schools? Any iota of truth in that argument? Yes,
there could be an iota of truth in that. You can find out if the argument was there for medical doctors in public hospitals, saying that many of them, they don't attend to patients as they ought to. They complain about poor package and pay packages, but they run their private hospitals. So when they are on strike like this, and then you go to the government hospital, nobody will attend to you. But you can get referrals to private hospitals where you find these same professors or these same experts, all to have been in private public sector, running their own private hospitals. So the same thing you likely also find in the educational sector. The same analogy can also have to the petroleum industry, where you extract oil. Rather than refine here in this country and sell to people at cheaper rate, you take it abroad. They will refine for you, you buy it back into this country, and then you now sell it to people at expensive rate, and you say you are subsidizing. Certain persons are benefiting from this chain. So that's why they will not allow us to have our own private refineries in this country, public university in this country. The same thing runs across board. So for those who are popularizing public institutions in order to elevate their private institutions, so that because they can benefit, capitalism at play, they can make more profit from that. If you find them advertising, they tell you that there is no strike in private universities. They will show you their lab.
That's competitive advantage.
Yes. They will show you their lab. They will show you their library. They will show you so many things. The exchange program they do. Students can travel abroad to interact with other students, in another department, and return, and all of that, to give you that balanced, education. So with all of those attractive packages, you find students running there. But the public universities are also run in the same manner. And then they are crying, please fund us. I went to the University of Benin. I knew the number of years strike took away from us. We didn't get it at record time. We saw what the hostel facilities were looking like. In those days, people were, were cooking for students. You have a meal ticket. You go out there to go and eat. All you have to do in school is to study, and that's all you do. But now we bring our own stove, our own what we call a ring boiler, whatever you put, the hot plate to school. So you have to shop for yourself. You have to cook for yourself in school. You have to take care of your own small cubicle, in the hostel or the units. At the same time, you go back to lecture hall. Then you go to the library. You find that the books in the library are not so much. Especially whereby a student will go there and hide a particular book. A lecturer are giving a reference. Go study so and so. Do further research. A student will go ahead of you and steal that book from the library. After studying it, he will hide it so that he will go back to it. Other students will go back to the shelf. You will not find them. Why can you have a number of volumes of that same book on the shelf so it to be enough for every student to go there and study? So we went through all of this hardship, and at the end we still came out firebrand. You go out there, you find many of us who travel abroad, to compete with other students, in other climes. You find us doing better. So when we went to the University of Benin or to these tertiary institutions, we are self-made. The kind of facilities that they have abroad, we don't have it. That's when we go out there and they give all those kind of benefits, those comparative advantage out there. You find us, assigning those students. We find them because we actually made of stone in this country. So we went through all of these crucibles by ourselves. Because if you don't help yourself, nobody will help you.
Let's begin to wind down now.
So we expect that government should properly fund educational institutions. If ASUU is asking that fund institutions, give 26% of the budget to education, what would be bad in that? Why would you rather give it to maybe a poor elephant project, capital project, a borrow of 1.5 million that to have been sung? You say you sung the borrow for 15 million. you know, and he put a budget on that. Rather than investing such money, you know, amount of money in education, and ensuring that you send teams to the schools to go actually, you know, oversee the implementation of this budget, to be sure that the libraries are properly staffed, what they call the laboratory, you know, properly equipped, and all of that. And then go back to the old system, where the students don't know how to bring their stuff to the campuses to cook for themselves. Because I'm going to make the environment conducive for lecturers to teach. So you make for students to learn. Because when the two are not there, the synergy will not be there. You cannot have a disconnect. So when you not say you have a unemployable graduate, yes, both the government, the lecturers themselves, you know, they are all part of this whole problem. Because the students themselves who went through school, the parents have paid their school fees, they went to school to go and learn. They are ready to receive this knowledge. If you give them half-baked education, they will also come back with half-baked degrees. And then they come back and work in your institutions and they give you half-baked services. And they cannot complain that the Nigerians are not, they are not smart enough. You find Nigerians, you know, abroad, I think in the US, who do a medical doctor who did an operation, you know, remove, you know, the fetus, the baby from the womb of, you know, of a pregnant woman, treated that woman, put the baby back, and the woman delivered, you know, safely afterwards. And that person got an award. He got it from Nigerian University. He went through all that, you know, he threw all the sweat and blood by himself, then went out there to perfect, you know, whatever knowledge gift that God has given him. So we are very gifted in this country. Yeah. Lecturers should properly, you know, give them good incentive so that they can teach well. The material they need to teach should also be. They look at secondary schools, for example, where a lecturer will go to school and say, I don't have material to teach. Since I must report to duty, I'm here. By the time we have closed for the day, everybody go back home. And then the students come back, you check their notebook, they have not done much. You add the lecturer and say, well, I'll be no subvention given to me, I'll be the one doing this thing by myself. I'm tired of it, so I was reporting to you, I report to you.
By way of closing this discussion.
So there must be proper funding.
Let's talk about funding.
Yeah.
We're proper funding,
yes,
in his words, put an end to all of this problem.
Funding, proper funding.
Yes.
Of course, when you have facilities to teach, you can't hold lecturers responsible. I just, by way of closing, I want to remind our people that ASUU, we are not troublemakers, but just to remind us of why we are agitating for funding. That pounding machine, poundo yam machine, was developed in a university, a public university in this country. But however, although it's now being mass-produced outside this country, I watched students in University of Benin develop an application to diagnose a disease using the computer in the diagnose a disease in the body using the computer. I watched a student in University of Benin putting off lights from anywhere you are in the world, provided
remotely.
Yes, recently, provided phone calls can get to your house. The only thing he just did is that, or if a security lights in your house, if you need to put it up put it on in the evening, it's just to click on the phone. Maybe one item on the phone, a number on the phone, the thing is switched off. If you click a second time, it's off. You can put on fan, you can put on TV, anywhere you are in the world, provided a network gets to your house. I watch all of that in the university, and students do all different things. That is what we are talking about. That a white man will not come here to develop a pounding machine because they don't eat pounded yam. If you don't develop the universities in this country, of course you won't have all this.
Let me give you 2 minutes to react to something specific. We're talking funding now. Along that line, the Minister of Education has said that the agreement, as it keeps making reference to, the 2009 agreement in particular, was reached with the union at the time when the prices of oil in the international market were more favorable. And he categorically says that government cannot meet ASUU's demands right now. Now, the question is ASUU expecting the magic anytime soon?
Excuse me. The minister is speaking like a government person.
Of course, he is a government person.
Don't we know what the truth is? What is the price of oil today? Is it not about 80-something naira per barrel?
It's hovering around 80.
And so around 80. So are we still in the days of when it was 20 or 30 and all that? However, in 1999, Obasanjo took over when it was $19 per barrel.
Were things better for the university community then?
What I mean is, yes, of course, we received the first tranche of this same money we're asking for. Since then, the current government have reneged and all that. We're saying
We are seeing millions and billions flying around. You can't tell us that it because has our brethren or whatever their names are in the Senate, as their salary left 13.5 million naira a month as salary, where some others are fighting to just get only 30,000 in a month. Has it left that? So what if see what I'm saying, that if we really need to start as a country, let all of us return back to the drawing board. I don't think there should be much discernible differences in salary, because we all go to the same market. It's one that one person is at the other extreme. This is extreme capitalism, and I don't think it is working for this.
Let me allow Barrister Bayuana, last word. What would you say in summary before we close this discussion?
Well, I want to appeal to the federal government of Nigeria to allow good conscience, govern their decision. They should ensure that the agreement they have reached with ASUU, with any, agitating sector of the economy, your staff, whatever it is, meet your agreement. Because you are sending a message across, like you have rightly noted, that agreements are not meant to be obeyed. So they are made political statement. That shouldn't be. If you enter an agreement with ASUU, with the workers, please ensure, because the time wastage, the time you put into, the energy you put into reaching that agreement alone is something else. Look at the national confab. With so much money put into it, at the end of the day, they didn't implement it. Why do we keep, encouraging these wastages? So we should ensure that agreements are meant to be obeyed. You enter an agreement, obey that agreement. You cannot complain that the price of oil, is too low. That's why you cannot implement it. Government is a continuum. Whatever agreement has been reached should be obeyed. And I want to encourage those people in the Senate. I think it's high time the provision in the Constitution on the right to education, which not this fundamental of and principle of state policy, which have been said to be not justiciable, it's high time it be amended to be made justiciable in such a way that people can bring an action to
against government.
Yeah, against government, to ensure that this thing should be enforced. When you sit and say because it is not justiciable, it's a main political statement. So you can always double speak. Today you can say yes, I will do it. Tomorrow you say I will not do. After all, nobody can do anything about it. Look at Nigerian students as what do they call it, NAS. They are already collaborating with ASUU. 7-day ultimatum. Yes, ultimatum, saying that if you will not obey, and meet this agreement, we too are going to protest against you. Ordinarily, NAS should be able to go to court to say our right to education are provided in the Constitution. In
an ideal situation.
In an ideal situation. That right should be protected. But if they go to court now, the court system will say, well, this provision in the Constitution, they are not justiciable. The court cannot grant it for you because it is as well practicable that the federal government can make provision for this. Remove that non-justiciability. Exactly. And see whether the hit will not be put on the government. So anybody that they want to now govern this country as a president should know that if you fail to do that, there will be barrage of litigation against you. And when you fail to obey orders of court, move for contempt. The idea of I got judgment, they did not obey. No, don't stop there. I got judgment against the army in 2006 when I had an issue with them on the human rights concerns. They refused to obey that order. We went on a fight for contempt proceedings and garnishing proceedings. At the end of the day, we came down to a round table and we settled the matter out of court. They pay compensation. So don't renege. If you have judgment, push and push and push until you get the fruit of the judgment. It is for the court to give you judgment. Then it is another thing for you to enforce and ensure that judgment, to pursue and ensure that judgment is enforced. When you say, okay, I've already gotten judgment against the government will not obey. No. We have seen in this country where the judiciary cites officers of government for contempt when they refuse to obey the order of court. Right. So that should be the order.
Okay, I think that's where we're going to leave it, gentlemen. Let me thank Professor Julius CSLA, Chairman ASUU Uniben Chapter, for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having
Thank you. And the legal practitioner here, Matthias Obayuwana. Thank you too for coming. We're just going to take a quick break now, and in a bit I'll be back, and this time I'll be talking with some officers from a university in this country. Do stay with us.